Under extrusion. A terrible issue that plagues some 3D printers where too little filament is extruded. Your print turns out like a sponge and people start laughing at you and saying that you're a noob. 3D printing is stupid. You should never have started in the first place. You start asking yourself, did I make the right decision? Yes, you did, because you are watching this video in which we're not only going to solve the under extrusion issues of this Creality K1, we will make it even faster. Look at this thing go! Here we are going back to the roots of this channel, upgrading 3D printers. It's a nice way to celebrate the 100k subscriber milestone. I designed several upgrades over the course of this channel, and I feel like it's my duty to fix underperforming 3D printers. Remember, a bad extruder can turn an otherwise good 3D printer into a glorified paperweight. This is an early version of the Creality K1 and they supposedly fixed the under extrusion issues in newer versions. It turned out that Creality was sending new extruder kits for like $2, like Chuck mentioned in his video. I didn't get the message. Also, the link is dead, so as far as I'm concerned, I have a 3D printer with a shitty extruder and I cannot be the only one, right? I want to use this 3D printer as my prototyping machine for projects like this special 3D printer I'm currently developing, which is waiting for parts to arrive. So this is a nice in-between project. And we are going to slap this Bondtech QR on there.
The Bondtech QR. This big boy looks impressive and it has a proven and highly celebrated dual drive technology. Filament grinding and slippage is now a thing of the past.
This thing came in second in our Tarkov extruder war. This is insane! And the one that came first is reserved for future projects. And I think it's just fun to slap this chunky boy on there. I set myself two requirements. One is that it should fit most extruders. So I have to come up with some sort of adapter system. And the second one is that it should be reversible, so if you don't like the mod, then you can always go back to its original state. Maybe you've guessed it, but this is going to be a Bowden style system, meaning that instead of having the extruder directly on top of the hot end, which is called the direct drive system, it's being placed further down, so the filament is being pushed through a tube. The biggest disadvantage of this is that it's much harder to print flexible filaments, but most of the filaments aren't flexible and I don't print that often with flexible material anyway. And maybe this gantry becomes even lighter, so who knows, we can print even faster with this mod. Okay, let's take it apart. Okay, to give you a bit of an idea, we are going to swap out this extruder for this one. The first thing that I always do, even before starting any design programs, is to do some basic research to see what's already out there and to figure out what's needed for a project like this. And that's where the sponsor of this video comes in. Opera Desktop. Opera Desktop is a fast browser that improves your productivity and makes your life a bit easier. It comes packed with features and I'm pretty sure that you're going to like this. For instance, with Opera you can create workspaces. I've got one for the standard stuff, and when I need to open a lot of tabs while doing research, I can just do that in a new workspace. This makes everything well organized. Another cool feature that I like is this sidebar where I can check up on notifications, but also use the built-in AI tool called Aria. I can even select some text from a page and let Aria explain a bit more about it. And lastly, and I think that this is really neat, is a feature called pinboards. I can store pages, take snapshots and keep everything well organized. It's possible to share a pinboard, so I think that this is a very neat way of sharing knowledge. So if you like to be productive, you want to do some research or want to share knowledge, or just want a very capable browser that's also very fast, then I can definitely recommend Opera browser. Opera's goal is to grow their community and I'm very happy that I can be part of that. You can get Opera for free if you use the link down below. And thanks Opera for sponsoring this video. Okay, let's build something for that thing. Many people ask me to share my design process. How do you design the things you design? Where to start when designing something new? It all starts with good coffee. Well, jokes aside, I honestly don't like filming the design process. This is usually pretty boring stuff. Drawing sketches, performing measurements on the parts you design for, and entering those dimensions. In principle, this is pretty simple, but the hard part is coming up with the design. It's like saying that drawing is easy because it's touching a sheet of paper with a pencil and moving the pencil around while applying some pressure on the paper. This is why I don't like showing it. I make a lot of mistakes during the design process. I'm not afraid of showing these mistakes, but I'm constantly iterating during this process, and that's hard to explain in a video. This can become tedious and confusing. I don't know from the start how the design ends up looking. Usually I just show a time lapse where you can see the design evolve, or I just explain the final result. However, I've been thinking about sharing this actual process of making the mistakes and getting to a final result. Making a course, a design/development course. There are already a ton of these courses out there, and I was wondering what I can add to this pile. Maybe this is something. Let me know your thoughts. Is this something you would like to see? Okay, earlier on I mentioned that I set myself 2 requirements for this project, and I want to add a third, and that's this mod should be easy to reproduce. It took a couple of iterations, and my initial idea was to just design a simple block and add inserts to the side. But during the design I thought I don't need the material here in the center, so maybe if I remove this it can be even lighter. But this resulted in that we have room now for adding nuts here, which are much easier to source than inserts. And I am using these flanged nuts. I'm using flanged nuts because of the bigger surface area, so I can tighten them a bit more. But you can also use regular M3 nuts. And yeah, I said that this is lighter. Talking about lighter, this is what we remove from it. Let's see what kind of weight reduction we actually have here. So I have a scale. First the original extruder that came from the printer, and that is, let's say, 155 grams. And now this one together with the Bowden coupler, it's 15. That means that we've got a weight reduction of 90% if we use the numbers in our favor. And we also don't need an insert for here at the top, because I just modeled the thread and we can screw this Bowden coupler in here. So, and the M6 thread in here, it's pretty coarse, so it's strong enough, it will hold. And another feature that I'm quite happy with, that is also enabled because of the shape, you can see these slots here, and these are used for adding zip ties. Their function is for strain relief for our motor cable. Regarding that motor cable, the thing is that with the original motor, this connector is pretty small. This is the size of a normal connector. So I was afraid that we had to cut this and use the end of this cable, but that will break the second rule of this video. But fortunately I found this Reddit post that had the same question regarding what connector type this is, and that linked to a video from Nathan Builds Robots. And in that video Nathan also made an extruder upgrade for the Creality K1, and he mentioned that this connector is the Pico blade system. So thanks for that information. And there was also in that Reddit thread a link to Amazon with these connectors, and they come pre-crimped, so this definitely makes our lives a lot easier. So let's mount this to the printer, and then we can design the part that will hold the extruder, and then we can add motor cable and see if everything works. Okay, I must mention something that is kind of important. I have this Bondtech coupler here, but we need the pass-through type if we have a Bondtech tube. It's important that it goes all the way through. This is called a PC4M6, and I also found out during a quick search that these aren't extremely common, and the one that's way more common, that's this one. This is called the PC4M10, but this thread is far from being M10, and this turns out to be a 1/8 BSP thread, which is British standard pipe. This is the same Bondtech coupler that's used for the old Creality printers, and this is much more common. So I also made another version that has this BSP thread, so this meets the third requirement of this video. So I'm going to upload both on my website. I'm going to place this one on there. Okay, I reversed the extruder motor wiring, and this time it extruded in the right direction. So I started printing its first benchy with the same file as I've used for the benchy in the intro, with one modification, and that's the extruder steps that work with this extruder. And it didn't turn out bad, but definitely not perfect. And one of the things that I noticed was the PTFE tube starting to buckle. That implies that there is a lot of pressure in the system. So it's definitely not a problem from this extruder. So we have a different problem here. And then the benchy came loose from the build plate. We have to improve on this, and the easiest way to improve this is with a better Bondtech tube. I've got this Capricorn Bondtech tube here. I have this cheap Bondtech tube on here, and I only chose this because of its color. And I'm also going to cheat a little, because I removed the stock nozzle from it, and I'm going to replace it with the Bondtech CHT nozzle that has a much higher throughput. Then I'm going to print the same benchy again, see if it has improved, and if it has, then I'm going to push this thing to its limits and see if we can print a sub 10-minute benchy with this thing. But first I want to say thanks to my Patreon supporters, especially these guys, my top tier Patreon supporters and gold members. Your support helps a lot with these projects, so thanks guys. Normal benchy finished, lots of stringing, but it's here. Okay, let's fucking go. Push this thing to its limits. Sub 10 minute benchy. Okay, I've done some crazy things over the course of this YouTube channel. We 3D printed a car wheel, hung from a bridge to test the strength of ABS, printed the guitar neck and smoked out a car. Is this, the sub 10 minute benchy, one of them? No, it's not. However, I hope that someone watching this gets value out of this in one way or another. Turning an idea into reality is just awesome, and 3D printing enables us to do this. I hope that with the stuff I show here that I've done now for 5 years, I can help people to experience this as well. It doesn't need to be a full-fledged 3D printer designed from the ground up. It can be something smaller, like modifying a 3D printer to make it more reliable or even faster. I'm very thankful to everyone who was with me on this journey from 0 to 100,000 subscribers. It has been tough and I dedicated my life to it, yet I wouldn't have done it any different. I still have the feeling that this is just the start and I want to show many more even cooler projects, so stay tuned for what's coming, because man, there is so much more that we can explore.
Yes, 6 minute 50, sub 7 minute benchy, holy shit!